lovers. I am so blessed and honored to be in a position to share, tools and tips and tricks that have the potential to heal and to bring you to a place of full sexual embodiment. And one of the tools that I absolutely love and have been using for the better part of a decade are crystal yoni products, including pleasure wands and yoni eggs. And I was so excited to recently come across a brand called Wands, Waands. I met the founder here in Austin and I absolutely loved who she was. I love getting to know the people behind the products that I like to use. And I just loved her mission to really support women and men to explore, celebrate, and honor their sexuality. I felt this transmission of slow, sensual seduction in all of who she was and all that she brought to the world. So I went ahead and gave it a try. I purchased a blue quartz Emerita wand, and the Emerita wand is great because it has this like cool bulby end on it, which is designed for G-spot and cervical stimulation, but can also be used for prostate stimulation. So it's great for men and women and can even be used between partners. So I'm so honored to have built this relationship with her and to be able to offer you guys an amazing discount code. So if you use the code Leola, Leola, that will give you 15% off all products. And the website is wands.com, Waands.com. And we'll go ahead and link that in the show notes as well for you. So thank you so much for listening. And also you're welcome for the inevitable pleasure and healing and ecstasy that is coming your way with these products. Let's dive into the episode.
Welcome to Talk Tantra to Me. It is such an honor to be holding space for this divine knowledge to make its way into your ears and lifestyle. Today, back on the podcast, we have our favorite guest, my favorite guest, and my husband, Andrew Lloyd Watkins.
Hello.
And today we're going to be talking about something that can be really crunchy, I find, in partnerships, and something that people really avoid. And we like to talk Tantra, and we also like to talk taboo on this podcast, and that is money. We're going to talk about money, but specifically money in relationships and in partnerships.
Yeah, and none of this is prescriptive. This isn't advice. This is just what we do and what works for us.
And I think that we've both done things very differently in other partnerships, and it's worked for various, degrees and reasons. And we come from different backgrounds, but going into something that's like, we're going to do life partnership and we're going to have, specific roles in the partnership as well, has created.
That gagging you're hearing is not just from the joy of speaking. It's I don't know if you can see the puppy, but
our puppy's trying to
she starts
escape.
to gag when she gets excited, just like Leola.
Anyways, this isn't a episode about that kind of power play, but we could bring in some power play with our money as well in this podcast if you're up for it. I should have asked for your consent before.
I don't know what that means, but let's feel into it.
I'll allude to it and we'll see if you're.
I think I know what it means, but.
With me sharing, there's a specific story that I'm thinking.
Oh,
of.
I think I know what story you're talking about.
We'll let them to it.
Well, we'll let them wait with bated breath what my answer is.
Okay,
so we go into it.
I'm trying to think of like how to cue what story that is to you without giving it away.
I know what it is.
Maybe I'll let you start it, and then okay. If we go there, but anyways, So money stuff, doing money when you know that you're going to be with your person is also a completely different ballgame than when you're just dating. But I think it would be good for us to talk about or start with, like, how did we handle money in relationships when we were at various stages of dating, and what do we maybe recommend as well?
Well, again, to reiterate, this is for our particular scenario and for us. And I don't want to be prescriptive and like make recommendations, like blanket recommendations for people in finances. There are some universal kind of tenets and things, but I'm going to just reiterate that this is for us and for our particular unique circumstance as husband and wife as life partners, and then we can talk about what we did during our BFGF stages as well, or at least what I remember.
Yes, and I want to talk about what we did in other relationships too, just to show like the different ways of it showing up, because we were pretty clear that we were gonna like do life together from the beginning, and there wasn't that same level of security, and we did handle money differently at different stages. But I think it would be good to talk about that as well, because not everyone is sure, you know, from the beginning, and also things have changed over time for me, and I'm sure for you, in terms of how we handle who pays and who pays for what in relationship. But you're totally right. It's not prescriptive. And I say this with everything on the podcast and in all my courses. And really my invitation for anyone listening, anytime they expose themselves to any new idea or self-development of any kind, is to take what lands for you and leave the rest, and just be curious and open. But find your own way. Trust yourself more than trust us. But we will offer a perspective and one way of doing things.
Yeah, a way. So yeah, previous relationships. I mean, I got married super young. So my first marriage, I was 22. I didn't really have any money, so there wasn't really a lot of money to go around. So we basically just kind of split everything as we could.
Wow.
Yeah.
What year was that? Just to
it was
give people
2006, 2005, something something like that. So it was very different. And then, but I basically kept that mentality up until I started making money, really.
And what was your reasoning for let's split everything? Was it just because you didn't have money, or was there anything else?
I don't know. I didn't really think about it too much. I was like, well, you know, we're equals, and so we should split the things, and that's that.
Yeah, I think that's something to speak into, this idea of like we're equals, because we live in this world where women like are pretty new to having like more privilege and access to money. Like it's really only been like in the last century that widespread women have had access. So there is this piece of like, cool, we're equal. And it's not like we just became equals, but there were ways where we were, I don't know, like kept from that reality. And then at the same time, like so many have just started working, and then there's like income gap stuff, but then there's also this like, I want to be treated as equal, so yes, we should split things. So like there's just lots of different layers at play. Like this is like my experience in like early relating, but then also like my parents told me like the guy should always pay, you know? And so like hearing different voices from different places, and just like my experience for a lot of my dating life was just like not really knowing what was right. Like if I should pay, if I should offer to pay, if he should pay, or like, what do I really want? Like, do I want him to pay, or do I want to pay as like a statement? Like what is the right politically correct way to show up for a date and know who's gonna pay?
I'll just say fuck the political correctness side of the thing, and I should also be and just do whatever is hottest for the two people involved.
I think that's great advice.
So for me, and I should be really clear on what I'm talking about splitting as well. Even when I had no money, I refused to let the woman pay for the date.
Oh, really?
Oh,
So
I would rather go into debt for $150 or whatever the meal was at the time than fucking not pay for the meal out. Like, no, at least it was like I was role playing as the provider. Right?
Why was that? Why did you feel the need to do that?
Because that felt like the most attractive thing to do.
So was it like a strategy to like increase your chances of?
Everything was a strategy to increase my chances at mating successfully in my 20s, obviously. Yeah.
Willing to go into debt for that.
Of course. Yeah, of course. And to be totally frank, it like, I dated a lot of very progressive women, but even like if I had not paid on that first date or whatever, it would have been an immediate lady boner killer, like immediately.
I wonder how true that is, because we're 10 years apart in age. So like in my generation, I think it was like more expected to split than like it was for the dude to just like outright pay. And so like, and it wasn't until I was a bit older that I was like more like, I was always like, it was just this conflict. Like there was the conflict of like, oh, we're equal. And yeah, like it makes sense intellectually then that we should split it. But also this like instinct of like wanting the dude to pay. And also this like conditioning ancestrally and from my lineage and parents that dudes should pay. So there was lots of confusion, but I definitely fucked some dudes that I split the bill with. I don't know how accurate the lady boner killer is for splitting the bill.
I think it entirely depends on the context. There are plenty of stories I've heard of women completely supporting completely dirtbag dudes and are absolutely obsessed with them and will like pay their rent and whatever. It's like, but that's not the guy that I wanted to be or ever saw myself as. Mm-hmm. And so even if I wasn't that guy, I was at least going to play at being that guy as best as I could.
Yeah. There was also this thing of like, women put so much into a date even before the date in being attractive for the date that was always a factor that was brought up as well amongst the lady crew I was in to basically like fluff up the idea that like it still is equal if they pay, because I had to get my nails done and wax my pussy and like, you know, do all the other stuff.
Yeah, I'm uninterested in what is the most equal outcome, and I'm more interested in what is the most attractive outcome for both individuals. And so if both people are like, this is fucking, I love that he pays, that's super hot, and I love getting all dolled up, and the guy is like, I love the idea of her getting dolled up in preparation for a said date, and then I go out and I take care of it, and like it's no big deal, just throw my card on there, have it clink around because it's made of metal, it makes me feel really cool. Great. And if the inverse is also, you know, I'm just looking for a mommy that I want to take care of me, and like, and that's what she's looking for, and she has her own money, she's uninterested in having some dude take care of her, and she just wants some young naive pool boy. Like, great, whatever floats your boat. But for me, I wanted the traditional role.
Yeah. I once went on a date with a dude who was like super awkward when it came time to pay. Not because he didn't want to pay, but because he was like, I've had women in the past get angry at me for insinuating that I should pay and like calling me not progressive or like not feminist. And I found that so interesting. Like even if I did want to pay because that was hot for me to be like, I've made this money and I want to spend it and I want to be equally contributing to this dinner or date or whatever it is, I would never like get pissed at someone for their generosity.
It wouldn't either. And also it's like, it's also an energetic thing too, where if the idea is like, I'm going to pay for this date, and the energy in it is like, and now you owe me something because I'm paying for this date, it's like fucking gross and it's not cool, and that's
a really good one to
but
talk
it's
about.
like, I'm paying for this because I got you. That's hot as fuck, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Oh man, I just had another thing that I love. Oh, I did have one rule. And the rule, and this was like, and which was unspoken, and I don't care if it's not fair. It was my rule, it was, she had to at least fake that she was gonna pay for the date. So the time would come, and I'd be like, all right, I'd take my wallet, and she'd be like, and if she didn't at least pretend, like she's like, are you sure? Like any of that, like I was like, okay, that's a no.
Yeah.
We're not. The story I made up about that is like, okay, we're not on the same team here, or no, and she won't think that we're on the same team.
Okay, yeah. That was the reasoning behind it.
Or she's just gonna use me.
What if it was me and I did that, and like when we started dating, I didn't like offer to pay?
You wouldn't have.
I did offer to pay.
I know, so it's not a problem.
I remember I'm like tuning back into that time and being like, I really hope that he just covers his check, but I'm gonna offer because like we're playing this game. Because that's what it is. We're like sussing each other out, and it's like, so I'm happy that I offered. And I remember too, not to skip ahead, but maybe we save this, but Yeah, I mean, in a relationship for a long time, I would always offer, and I would say like maybe 2/3 of the time, like earlier in my 20s, about half of the time, I would end up splitting the check, and half the time the dude would pay. And then as I got, or maybe even more so, maybe it was even more than half the time we split the check. It was a more significant amount. And as I got older, more and more, I started to date men that would just pay immediately. And I was like, I like this.
It's great.
It feels really good. I enjoy it. Yeah, it just felt really good in my system. And like, I wasn't a no to it. And there were people that I dated at different points that like I was more okay. Like when I was in my solo poly chapter, I was definitely splitting the bill more because it wasn't like I was dating men as much to like meet my person and see if they were like interested in being in that more masculine provider protector role. But once I shifted back into that, like I was very clear that like I wanted a dude that was like, yeah, I've got it. And the thing is too, is like at this point in our relationship and in my work, like I make more than enough money to like take care of me. And actually I could take care of you. I mean, you make more than me still for now.
I would love it if you made more than me. It would be great. I'd be super down for it.
Yeah.
But this actually touches on a kind of an evolution of kind of the topic that I thought it was going to naturally go to, and that is like once we get married, a really important shift that we both made was, at least for me, like there wasn't a distinction between like your money and my money. And I'll be super specific of what that means. It's like I just see it as one pool of like money is a way to exchange. Like I'm basically trading this money to like save time and buy nice things.
Yeah.
Right. And I see it as a pool for us to leverage our time, and it's ours. Mm-hmm. I don't see like it's our goals together for one purpose with our family.
Yeah.
But to be specific, it's like I still have my own checking account. Leola still has her own checking account and her business account. But the funds are the funds.
Yeah.
They're ours. And like we have visibility into all of our stuff. I budget all of our things. We use one primary credit card. I won't get into the specifics of the credit card game or anything like that. I don't think that's too interesting in the audience, but and that comes out of one account, and then that's that. Now, it sounds like a very simple thing, like us, but it was a somatic, so I felt it in my body, and it was an emotional and like intellectual shift that occurred in my mind, where there was a moment where it was like my money and Leola's money. And then I don't know when it happened, but then there was a shift, and then it was as if a weight came off of my shoulders, and I felt actually even closer to you.
Yeah. There were a few iterations of that. So when we first started dating, it was like we played that game of like, all right, who's paying, who's not, and then it started to be like, you know, I think like I was conscious of like, you know, it was just whatever made sense. So we each had our own rents at the time, like, but I would, you know, if it was something more for me, I would just pay. Or if Andrew had helped me a lot in my business that month, I would like take him out to dinner. But like a lot of the time, Andrew was putting down his card when we went like anywhere, the two of us. Mm-hmm. And it was awesome. And I was like, I like this. And there was also this weird like mental calculation in the brain, like throughout the relationship, especially when we had started Airbnb-ing Andrew's place, and he moved in with me. And then it was like, how much are we paying on for different things? And like, I noticed myself start to actually get like stressed about like thinking about it all. And part of and like doing the mental calculations and like, since we've merged more formally, it's been like a huge relief and like not having to think about it. And like, you lead our finances, I'm, you know, aware and in the loop, but it's like such a relief to be like, great, like not my zone of genius. Like I can manage my money. I know what I'm doing with my money. I feel good handling money, and like to handle our finances as a family and like make the bigger investments and like be tracking, our spending feels really good. And then I have someone in my business that does it more for my business.
Yeah, I don't really do much on your business side of things. I just handle our personal finances and then our like retirement goals, basically, is what I do.
Yeah. I want to talk a little bit more about what we do and how and when we made that decision. But also I want to go back to, you had mentioned this like thing that happens where men pay and there's this expectation of getting something.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that was really hard for me for a long time, was feeling this, like knowing that wasn't really true, that anytime a dude paid, I would have to put out. And that's just like a very real thing that I felt we should maybe speak into and address. Because I did, then I would connect intimately with men that like I didn't really want to because I felt obligated. And it's this really interesting, like, I think it's an ancestral piece personally, but it took really like knowing my self-worth and knowing like I don't owe anyone anything, and like I'm giving them my time and my energy and the opportunity to get to know me, and like that alone is worth tons of money, more than this date.
Well, so is mine as a
Yeah.
man, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I wouldn't even go that route. For me, it's like the man is his own sovereign being, and if he chooses to pay for the meal, he chooses to pay for the meal. Now, if his strategy is like, I'm gonna pay so I can then receive intimacy, it's like, okay. And by intimate, like,
you're basically a sugar daddy then, which is fine, but own it.
Like, and if that's hot for both of you, great.
Love it.
That's amazing. In my experience, though, I cannot negotiate desire.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, what gets me off is someone actually genuinely getting turned on by me. And there are nuances and there are kinks where that's involved. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking specifically for like, I'm going to get some things so that financially, so that I can get some stuff from you.
Yeah, which can happen on both ends. Like it's shadowy on both ends. You can be a woman and be like, I'm going to be all like sexually suggestive on this date to like ensnare this man and take his money or like resources or whatever. And then on the other end, it's the dude who's like, I'm such a good guy, I've got this, I'll like take care of this, and then is like butthurt because like she doesn't like give him a BJ, or whatever. And it's just shadow. Like that's what it is. It's just shadow. It's shadow work. It's
the same kind of, it rhymes a lot with the nice guy move, where it's like, I'm doing this so I can achieve some particular outcome sexually with this other human.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is like women's intuitions are just so like dialed in that energy comes off, and it's like, it's ick, it's nasty. And then they're wondering why they're having trouble attracting women.
Yeah. Yep.
So pay for it because you want to, or I pay for it because I want to,
or don't. And here's the thing: if you do want to like get fucked and like you want to have that power dynamic in exchange, that's amazing. And tons of women are like actually really into that. But like, be forthcoming about it. Don't be like, I'm just gonna pay for this to get laid and not be, I don't know. There's apps for it. So anyways, there's Fields, Seeking Arrangement, good stuff. Get out there. Or it could be something that like is even talked about on the first date for after the first date. Like, I want to pay for this date because I want to pay for it. And like, I think you're hot. I want to fuck you. Is there an arrangement available? I don't know. I would recommend sticking with the apps though for those non-traditional relationships. But I mean, it's even something that like we've been into at times, like not like playing with that like archetype or those roles as well, like in a role play.
Yeah, I've done it with you. It's great. It's super fun.
You want to talk about it or not?
We can talk about it. Yeah. So there was this one night. Well, I'll preface this. So you may or may not know this, but Leola is most of the time the initiator in our sexual relationships. I kind of take the more like feminine, passive role in our sex space, which can sometimes be to Leola's frustration.
And to be more clear, I am like, I want to have sex. And then a lot more of the time, you're in the more dominant, actual sexual, like,
correct
energy,
yeah.
And I'm more in the feminine, but I tend to be the one that's like initiating the sex actually taking place.
That's a good nuance there. That said, there was one particular night where that was not the case, where I was the initiator and Leola was just not having it. She was just like, I don't really want to. I'm not feeling it. I'm like tired, whatever the thing was. And I was like, I will give you $1,000. Was it 1,000?
I think we like actually were negotiating it. Like it was a negotiation.
I started at 500.
Yeah, I think it started lower, and then we were like I was like 5,000, and then I don't know. We ended up.
You said something ridiculous, like $5,000. And I was like, I'm not paying $5,000 to fuck my own wife.
Which you weren't. We weren't married yet.
We were engaged, right?
We were engaged.
Yeah.
But it was also like, and then it was like, well, I'm not your wife. And like going into the role play of like, actually, like how much, like, you know, so anyways, we were negotiating, and there was also like, oh, how much is it to
we would go into
come inside you? How much is it
to
it
was so hot.
Take you this way or that way? And so we had this like it was great. And then you Venmo'd me like,
I think it was $1,000.
During.
It was before it happened. Yeah.
No, it was during. We had started.
Yeah,
and I remember being like, interestingly, like in the set, like, is he really gonna give this to me? And like, he fucking better.
It was hot.
And
it was too hot not to.
And then he did it during, and it was great. And I used that. I like literally, he was like, how are you gonna spend that money? And I bought myself some nice new clothes and a nice ring. And it was so interesting because that month was like one of my lower months of the year in my business, and I was a little bit like, all right, like, you know, that happens. Like, it's like a seasonal thing. It's not a big deal. But it was like, I wasn't in like an energy of like, oh, I'm going to spend all this money on all these frivolous things. But then I was like, but now I can. So that was very fun.
Which is
really
why I am the one in charge of the personal finances.
So anyways, that's a thing, and it's great, and it can be explored like intentionally creating a whole relationship structure around that power dynamic, or it can be like a role play that you have in your power dynamic or in your relationship. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I just wanted to chat a little bit about that, but we can get back to
I'm not judging any particular act. I'm judging the come from.
Yeah. Are you in integrity
exactly.
and being honest
the
about
cool thing with like the sugar daddy sites and those, it's like, it's very clear what the arrangement is. To like just spring that on someone on like a regular date that'd be a Hail Mary, I think.
Yeah. You know, now that I know you, I don't think that I want to pursue life partnership with you, but I would like to pay you for sex.
Yeah. What's your number? Everyone's got one.
Yeah, that's a bold one. They might be triggered by that. But yeah, so I think that for us, what happened first was we were moving in together, and by the way, we made this like we've been together for about 1.5 years, and the first year together we actually made the same amount. And then Andrew's such a badass at work, so incredible, basically doubled his income like overnight, which was super hot, by the way.
Like 2.5x actually. But yeah.
Good correction.
And so it's not going for, let me be clear, it's not like going from $25,000 a year to 75. I won't be specific, but it's way better than that.
Yeah, it was significant. So we went from making the same, and then he had 2.5 to his. And so in the beginning, we were actually, you know, maybe splitting a little bit more, but then there was also this new dynamic, and we never talked about it. But we did move in together, and we technically were splitting rent, but still Andrew was paying for more and more things. And then you also got me your credit card, and that like got me your card to use for our things.
Yep.
Like another card. Am I saying that right?
Yeah, I have a credit card with a credit line, and then I got the same exact credit card just with your name on it.
Yeah. And it wasn't until a couple months ago actually that you were like, put everything on that card that is like not your business, basically. And that was like, I like when that moment came, I was like, whoa, what the fuck? But that didn't happen. So at first, you got me the card first, and that was a big step. And that happened like a few months after we got engaged. So there was also this time like when we did get engaged and it was very clear that we were going to be merging our finances, we actually did a call with like a coach, and he was like, act like you're married now. And he had actually challenged us to merge then.
Yep.
And so that kind of started to shift things as well.
It felt like a whole other layer of commitment. It's like, it's one thing to say how committed I am, and it's a whole other thing to do it with money.
Yeah.
And voting with money, it's kind of like it's analogous to like let's say you work for a company and they're like, we really appreciate all of your hard work. I'm like, that's great. You know how I really love feeling appreciated? You know how I keep score? More fucking money. And if they really value me and I actually am providing value to the business, and it's a wise business, they'll pay me more money.
Yeah.
And so it's a very similar kind of thing. It's like voting with my dollars. And people are very crunchy, or at least my experience can be super crunchy and around the money space.
Yeah.
And so fusing it and letting that wall down and combining them, it's like, I know I'm repeating myself here, but it created a connection that I didn't really understand until after I had done it with you.
I agree. It just became like, this is us now. It's not mine and yours. It's ours. We're together. Like it's our money. And that was really exciting. Like another, I think, big step was when you just like started showing me all of our accounts and what was in them. And then, you know, had me start to come on calls with our financial advisor and be a part of those, and also loop my business into like the suggestions that would be made for how we use our money. And then you got access to my accounts that like, I mean, I technically have access to your accounts or our accounts now too, but I don't go into them like ever or regularly. But you got access to my accounts as well so that you could see and even move money around, and you did. And we talked about what that would look like. And so there's now what we do is Andrea set up a like transfer where a certain amount of money comes from my bank account, like that I've made through my business, into our accounts. And then when there's like a big expense, or if I've had a big chunk of money or money starts to add up and it makes sense to move it into a different like investment or asset, we'll move a big chunk at a time. So like when we bought our house, I like contributed a bunch of money.
Yep. And with the credit card thing, it's like keeping it all on one card, with some exceptions, like makes it much easier to track and budget. If it's all like, if all of the debits and credits are coming out of like one primary account, it makes it way easier to track and budget what our spending is. And so we can have an appropriate savings rate. To be super specific, like our savings rate is something like 50 to 60% of our income.
And that's not us like pinching at all.
No, we're not. The easiest way to save 50 to 60% of your income is to just make way more money. It's like, that was way harder to do. I've done that at various stages, and it's way harder to do at 80K than it is to do at 500K. Way harder. But very similar principle. And so if I'm just used to spending 50% of my income, it just means I can save that much faster and achieve like escape velocity with financial freedom way faster.
They say you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And this is something that I really, really resonate with. And as I've invested in living a tantric lifestyle, my relationships have evolved and become so much more juicy and liberating. And I believe that this is something that everyone deserves. However, finding these people can be a little bit challenging at first. And so it is my mission to create more spaces for people to find individuals that are resonant with the tantric lifestyle, that are really resonant with you, the listener, the person who is investing their time into living a life that is expansive and liberating. So with that, I am committed to creating more and more safe spaces for people to discover their desires and practice their boundaries, to connect in community, to celebrate and to grow together so that we can all step into a more authentic version of ourselves and experience truly unconditional love. So we have Tantra retreats for men, women, couples, singles. We also have female-only retreats just for the ladies stepping into their divine feminine. We have play parties. We have Tantra workshops, Tantra yoga, women's circles. We've got all kinds of really powerful in-person events. You can find all the details at www.talktantratome.com/events. You can also just go to talktantratome.com and click the events tab to find out about all the latest and the greatest. And if you're wanting me all to yourself, I can't blame you. I also host private retreats for both individuals and couples. Those are one-on-one. You get me all to yourself. And I'm available for private Tantra workshops and performances. And this is great for events like your birthday, or maybe a bachelorette party or bachelor weekend. We can talk and create something that will be extra special just for you. So I cannot wait to connect with you in real life. But for now, thanks so much for your patience with this brief interruption, and let's get back to the episode.
Yeah, that's such a good lesson to learn, that your energy is much better spent on figuring out how to make more money than on how to save money, because the $5 that you're not spending at Starbucks to make your homemade coffee is not going to move the needle as much as creating a new stream of revenue.
It's a both and it's also energetic, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So it's is my saving coming out of a miserly fear of never having enough? And look, that's okay if that's where it's coming from. I'm just gonna feel way shittier on the path to getting the money that I want to have. Oops, mm-hmm. I moved the camera a little bit, or that's fine. And I don't want to feel shitty while I'm saving my money. And so, look, I'm not a billionaire, but I'm doing okay. And the very first thing that my mentor taught me around money is the energetics around it. And shifting how I feel about and think about money was a huge leap forward for me, both in my income and my investment opportunities, and then just how I felt day to day about money. Yeah. And there's a clear shift in my net worth from that shift, that emotional shift. Mm-hmm. So, what does that mean? That means what are my beliefs around it? Do I actually believe that this is something that can happen for me? Yeah. If I don't, then okay, I've got some work to do there. And one thing that I can do to improve that is make more money.
And this is something that we talked about from the beginning of our relationship, and I think is something that's so important if you are wanting to get into life partnership, and if you have the vision of building a life with someone and merging finances, then it's important. And even if you don't want to merge finances, it's important to talk about that early. If you're like, I want to get married and I want to build a life together, but I don't want to merge finances, or I do, it's really important to talk about all of our mindset and beliefs and intentions and desires for money at the beginning of the relationship. And it's something that I see over and over again, people that have been in a relationship for years that don't even know how much their partner makes. And it's boggles my mind. It's also just giving power away to that thing. You don't realize the emotional bandwidth that is within you if you're worrying about those things under the surface as well.
Every relationship book that we've ever read has recommended very clear transparency around the money situation. Yeah. And I've been super upfront with you about my situation from the beginning. And I would not want to be. I could not be in partnership with someone that doesn't have where we aren't aligned on what our strategy is.
Yep.
That's kind of easy with you because you were like, you heard what mine was and you were like, great, go ahead.
And I also had a good money foundation.
You did. Yeah.
Already.
You have a great income. You're a decent saver. You had a decent amount saved up for your age, right? And so I made it really easy.
Yeah. And also like all of those things like really came together within a few years of knowing Andrew. Like I'm 30 now. We met when I was 28.
Hot.
And I just want to put this in here because I think that people like listening, if you're like, I don't have my money shit figured out at all, like that's okay. It's actually like you can figure it out and shift some things like in a relatively short amount of time. Like, and there's so many resources out there to learn.
I didn't come from money. I didn't have a ton. I was in like 6-figure debt actually in my 20s from school and just poor life choices. And you can totally turn it around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have any resources you recommend for people on that, by the way?
Yeah. Mr. Money Mustache, I think, is the best. It's free. It's a blog. It's the kind of the precursor to just like high savings rates and really getting clear on how I spend my money. Because increasing income is great. But if I don't build the savings habits and I can purchase assets and invest with the income that I make. And if I spend all of it, then I cannot purchase said assets.
Yeah.
And assets are what generate and create wealth.
Yeah.
And so Mr. Money Mustache is a great foundation for the savings piece and a mindset piece on at least for me, not feeling like I was scrimping to save. It was like, oh, there's a clear reason why I'm saving and doing so much.
Yeah. And I will say too, I do a bit of coaching and have content on money, not like high level financial planning sort of stuff, but on how do I track my income and my expenses and how do I make up like an entry level plan into
the
my
basics.
Financial future.
Yeah, the basics for personal finance can really be learned in like 3 hours.
Yeah. I actually do like a 3-hour intensive. You see me do them just on money. Right. And it's like, and my approach has the practical, but also the feminine as well, the more receptive energetics too.
So I would say Mr. Money Mustache and then the subreddit Personal Finance. They have literally an image, if you're a W-2 employee, of literally a flow chart of the decisions to make with your money. Yeah. It's great. It's incredible, and it's a huge free resource, and it's fantastic. So those two, you start there, and you're good to go. And the real hack is shifting that emotional piece around the money. Yep. If I fundamentally believe in my heart of hearts that I can't actually do this and that's not possible, then it's going to be really, really tough for me to break out of it.
Just storm?
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah, I think it's the thunderstorm. Oh, I can't wait to snuggle you in a thunderstorm. Oh my gosh, and cook dinner. Oh God, I want to turn this off right now, actually. Just get into bed. I love thunderstorms.
So anyways, that being said, getting back to like the timeline and what and why we decided to do the things we did. So then we got married and we decided not to do a prenup. I feel like we should talk about that because it's very related to net worth.
So that was a shift for me. I was like, prenup for sure. I don't want this woman taking all of my resources and just using me for my dollars. And I was like, okay. One, that's not how I want to go into this. And then two, I was like, I was like, I want to disincentivize myself as much as possible for divorce. I was like, I want to make it the hardest it could possibly be on me to even consider the thought of divorce. Yeah. And there's a fun fact that I heard is that that people who own businesses, like husbands and wives that own businesses together, are 90% less likely to get divorced than husband and wives who don't. And I was like, okay, so Leola and I, like, being intertwined in her business in some capacity, and like, prenup, and then we're cruising with gas, or cooking with gas, not to mix metaphors.
It's a good start.
So yeah,
I mean, especially, that if you follow that percentage, only 10% of people that are building a business together
90% less likely. So it's not like it's less likely. So
Okay.
of the suite of people, you'd be 90% less likely.
Okay,
not like,
then the 50%
yeah.
that do.
I believe that's the stat, or it's something like
something
it doesn't
significant.
matter. It just it helps with our odds. Who cares what the number is?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So for prenup, for me, I was like, I don't really know. Like, I don't really care either way. I think that maybe we should do some research on it and then decide together. But I think that it might have been in one of the books we read that it suggested not, and it gave a really good reason why. And that's actually, I think, when you were like, oh, actually, I agree. I don't think we should do a prenup.
There were three things. There were three resources. I saw a podcast with a really wealthy couple, married couple, that he flip-flopped. He was like, I'm going to do prenup, and then flip-flopped on the prenup. And then we read two marriage books, and both from very, very different perspectives, that both were like, it's not a great idea. And I was like,
oh, really? I don't remember.
Yeah.
I just remember one of them.
Yeah. And so I'm like, okay, that's what and then the only thing I heard it from as like a positive, like you definitely should, was from a divorce attorney.
Lawyer,
and I'm like, well, if you ask a barber if you need a haircut, he's probably gonna say you need a haircut.
Yeah.
So it's like the incentives just aren't aligned here. So that's how I made that choice.
Yeah, so then we actually did the thing. We got married. We didn't have a prenup, and that was a different level. But and then I think it was slowly after that things started to move faster, where that was when you started getting into my accounts and moving things around, and I started to send you larger sums of money to do your magic with. And then we bought our house, and then in the past 2 or 3 months, I guess it was 2 or 3 months ago, you were put everything on the card that is not for your business.
Yep.
And that's where we're at now. And it's been great. I love, I didn't perceive it's interesting because I tend to like to be in control, and I've dated people that don't have their shit together with money, or put out this persona like they did, and then come to find out I'm actually way better at managing money than they are. That was a great one. I dated a guy that came from money, and he put off this energy of I know money, I'm good. And then I ended up paying for everything at some point. But anyways, knowing seeing how Andrew was moving with money, and the financial advisor and all of that, I was like, okay, cool. And I trust this man, and I love this man, and I don't this is one thing that I can take off of my plate, and I have more space now to be in my zone of genius. And that's amazing. And I love it. And I love that, I even love asking you if I can buy things now, which happened recently for my birthday. There was this beautiful turquoise, real turquoise bra top thing. And it was a little more than I would spend on a one-off night usually, especially being around the holidays, and we just moved into this house and our expenses are high. And so if it were me, I probably would have been no, I'm not going to get this. But I really wanted it, and I had my eye on it for a long time. And so I was like, what do you think? And he said, get it. And it was it was oh, hot. Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, and I was doing my budgeting and taking a look at a retrospective over the year, and I was like, oh shit, I actually don't know how much we have been spending month to month, what our average monthly spend is, because we have these two separate things. So it was we've got to get the expenses coming out of one place, or it doesn't have to be one place, but it's that'll make it much easier to know what our average monthly spend is, and then it's really easy to calculate savings rate when you take your average monthly spend and then you take a look at income.
Yeah. And I think that like my main like sell or like my main suggestion for merging finances is recognizing that like the potential of 1 + 1 = 3. When you enter into a partnership and two people are putting their resources, whether it be time, love, energy, money, whatever, like when two people come together, they're just so much more powerful in what they're able to actually create. And it's the same with money. And so like the choice for us, I think partially in deciding to just merge it rather than keep them separate is why would we hold ourselves back from that type of possible equation, a 1 + 1 = 3. And we have that 1 + 1 = 3 in pretty much every category of our lives in how we've merged. And I think that it's clear how that's going to be showing up even more now that we've very consciously put our money together.
And married couples make more on average, like per capita, than any two people.
Yeah.
And then since you're not like, you mentioned it frees you up to focus on other stuff. Like for me, it's like, I like it. And these are it's stuff that I kind of nerd out about and I get really excited about. And I like look at it all the time and I'm always thinking about, and it's super fun for me. So it's like, I now get to do even more of that.
Yeah.
So.
And I love talking about money, obviously, and I love like being in right relationship with money, but doing like accounting and like tracking every dollar that comes in and putting it in, like that does not interest me. And like researching which Bitcoin to like put money towards.
There's only
like,
one Bitcoin, babe.
You know what I mean? Which like like what are the cryptocurrency to invest in? Like that's not my favorite thing. So it feels really. It's almost like in the same way that like I hired an accountant or I hired an assistant. It's like we like Andrew leans on me for different like I do different things better in the relationship that I then take on and are more of my responsibility, and there are things that are more of Andrew's responsibility, and it feels really good to like let him take this one. I know I could do it, but it feels good to let him take it. But I also think it might be good for us to like, I feel like we're almost at the end. But one thing I really want to chat about is like the polarity and like the masculine and feminine, and how like the money style we've chosen, how that has affected like our like relationship in terms of like polarity.
You want to hit that one off?
Sure. So I think that there's lots of coaches and like lineages and gurus out there today that really are pushing this like this image of polarity in relationships where the more male person takes the masculine role and the more feminine person takes the feminine role, and then they kind of stay in those roles. And it's not something that I really buy. I think polarity is a really great tool to create like yumminess and like sexual tension in the relationship. And we definitely use it, but we don't stay in our roles. Like I'm not always in the feminine, you're not always in the masculine. And like we do quite a bit of dancing in and out of those, I think, compared to like a lot of other couples, and we do it consciously and we do it unconsciously. But with money, it has been something that like we've taken more traditional roles within a way, in that like you are paying for things more from the beginning, and you also now manage our money more than I do. And I think that like,
and that makes your pussy wet.
Yeah. Yes.
Like we use terms like polarity and stuff in this fancy coaching world, but at the end of the day, it's about, or partly about, what makes your dick hard.
Yeah, it makes me feel provided and protected for sure. Mm-hmm. And again, it's not about like him making more money or like who's making the money, or like it's like about him like doing something for me that is gonna make our lives better. And like that's hot. Like that really is exciting. And I think that it's possible for the woman in the relationship to be the one to do that as well, if it feels really good and juicy and yummy for both people. I think it's just around having a conversation about who wants to do it and who is gifted and naturally talented.
Culturally, like, and polarity is completely, it's in the eye of the beholder. Mm-hmm. because personal finances were traditionally, I mean, by traditionally, I mean like in the 50s, was done by the housewife. She balanced the checkbook and like took it, like all of the household expenses, yada yada yada. That was her.
Was part of her
roles. Yeah, exactly.
As part of her household duties was the household budget.
But again, it's like, it's kind of like this whole topic is kind of like the topic of monogamy. Like the system isn't good, bad, right, wrong. It's just very simple and clear what the boundaries are.
Yeah.
So it's an easier system to kind of live in and dance in because the rules are very simple. And then I feel like the same thing is true with this whole polarity shit. Right, where it's like if someone is like, I'm take the masculine role and that's 99.9% of what I do. It's very clear, at least, like who's in what role at what time. Yeah. And with us, though, since, well, I'll speak for you, like you don't really do anything traditionally that I know of. And you're kind of a rule breaker and like to test these kind of things out. It's like, well, no, fuck that. We're going to dance with that and see what works for us. And but it is harder. It's harder to determine where those lines are and where those boundaries are and who or what is going to take the masculine head on this particular circumstance.
Yeah.
Or scenario.
Yeah.
Does that track with you?
Oh, that totally tracks. But it definitely makes me like feel really good when you take care of things and pick up the check. And I love swiping your card. That's really our card, but it's just like, yeah, it's also made my bookkeeping for my business so much easier because now everything that's on my cards is just for my business, and I don't need to like, you know.
It's great.
Yeah, it's been great. Like I didn't expect the level of like peace it would give me, and like at first it was almost like it was scary. It was like I feel like I need to be worrying about this and I'm not, and then it just became like at a certain point I was like, I'm totally surrendered. He will tell me if we need to like watch our spending on something or not. Like I literally don't even need to think about it anymore, and that was like so nice. So fucking nice. So nice.
Yeah, we've got it. Like our plan is just set. It's really just a matter of continuing to execute. That's really it.
Yeah.
We just continue to save and invest in what we're already invested in and watch that grow, and you grow your business and I'll grow my career, and that'll be that.
Do you have anything to say for dudes that want to like prepare themselves for partnership and be financially like ready for that?
I feel like there are milestones, like internal milestones set in one's life. As an example, like it was presumed that I would graduate high school and that I would go to college and graduate college.
Yeah.
And those were like embedded, ingrained milestones that had been set for me. I think another universal masculine milestone for the vast majority of men is like getting their financial shit together.
Yeah.
And feeling like they've got that on lock. And at least for me, I didn't really feel the confidence in relating until I had a clear path. I didn't have to have my shit fully together. I didn't have to have a 7-figure net worth. I was just like, oh, I know what the path is now. And then once I had that, dating became a lot easier and relating became a lot easier because there was just this there was this torrent or this storm that just kind of settled within myself. So it's not really advice as much as my own experience, which is it's like if I'm feeling weird about finances and relating and not having my shit together, getting that figured out will increase the confidence meter a bunch.
Yeah. It's almost like figuring out your financial shit as a dude is like the new like coming of age initiation that used to be in the tribes of like I don't know.
That's like whether we like it or not, whether it's equal or unequal is kind of irrelevant. But at least from the men that I've experienced and then my own experience, being able to be that provider or protector, regardless of how much their partner makes, is a milestone. And that is a unspoken internal goal that I think a ton of men have.
Yeah.
And when I'm 20 fucking 2 and I don't have that together, it's a lot harder.
Yeah.
But the older that I get and the more I got my shit together, the easier that became.
Yeah.
The more solid I felt.
I'd love to offer some advice on the other hand for women preparing for partnership and like what like I suggest they have figured out financially.
Sure.
And I think it's really important for women to know that they can provide for themselves and that they have the tools to make good money before they, not necessarily before they go into life partnership, but to be at least tracking if you're in partnership, what your why is for being in that partnership, and not staying in a partnership because you feel like if you don't stay in the partnership, you're not going to be able to take care of yourself. Like this is something that I've done and I've seen women do over and over again. And I've talked to clients about, there's this like tendency for women to get into a relationship and then become dependent on the man to actually like take care of them or entwine like their worth in the relationship in a way that then they feel like they can't leave the relationship, because if they do, like it's all going to fall apart and they're not going to be able to like handle it themselves. And so I think it's really important for women to understand finances, and budgeting and like financial planning and how to make financial goals before they like, not necessarily before they commit to someone, but if possible, do that. And if not, just be tracking within yourself. Am I relying on him solely for my financial like awareness? Like, is he my financial brain, or do I have one too? And like, do I truly believe that I can provide for myself? And if not, it's not like you need to leave the relationship, but do that. Like figure out how you can like create enough income for yourself, at least for a period of time, where you can create evidence that you can do that you can provide for yourself. And then if you want to just become like a housewife and have him provide and protect for you, amazing. But at least like to me, it's good to just be aware of that potential shadow piece that can come in and keep you from living, your highest life.
It's I don't envy women really in this modern day, because that's a fine line as well. As the inverse can also have, like, so what you described is over indexing on depending on someone else.
Yeah.
And then there's also an over indexing on depending on oneself.
Yep. Hyper independence.
And right. And then it's like, oh shit, I'm 40. I actually wanted kids. It might be it's probably too late right now. And now I've been in the masculine, like taking care of myself for the past like 2.5 decades, and I don't know how to switch that off.
Yeah.
And so there's no advice there. It's just,
I think it just comes down to self-awareness and being aware of what your priorities are. And ideally, like, work on yourself enough that you know that you can take care of yourself, but you're going to like potentially choose interdependence, with another person, because that is going to give you the lived experience that feels the most yummy and juicy and aligned with your higher self. So you get to have both. Like at the end of the day, that's the invitation, but it takes like the conscious awareness of bringing those pieces.
There's a middle way. Yeah. There's a middle way. I think men have it easier in this regard. It's just like, cause I think our time window is just
a little bit longer.
A little bit longer. Yeah.
And that's why I say, like, I don't think that women need to have like a certain amount saved or have like as much, like you had a lot more saved. You're older than me. You're 10 years older than me. So I don't think that it was as important for me to have like every single thing figured out. Now, diversified portfolio and like, the whole thing as much. But I think that it's just the foundational piece of like tracking. Do I believe and know to be true that I can take care of myself if anything were to go wrong, whether it be like I'm tolerating a relationship I shouldn't be in, my man
100%.
leaves my life unexpectedly because of like any reason, whether it be like by choice or not. So That's it.
100%. Yeah. And then for dudes, the advice, if you're really curious on the money thing and are like just starting out that journey, I'll reiterate again, like personal finance subreddit reddit.com/personal finance, and then Mr. Money Mustache. That's dudes or women, honestly. It's phenomenal resources. Highly recommend. It's getting your personal finances dialed in is just straight for the time that it takes is one of the highest ROI things that you can ever do. It's literally like 3 to 10 hours of work and learning will equate to hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars later on in life. And that's not hyperbole. It's not. That's using like average incomes. Like that's not even you like crushing it and being like top 5, 10% like income earner kind of stuff. Just as an average income earner, learning the basics of personal finance is literally a 6-figure decision.
Yeah.
It'll take you 10 hours. So do it.
Bless. Any final words?
I think that was a good one to end on. Except for that, I love you and I'm psyched to do this life with you.
Me too.
And I'm trapped anyway because I've got no prenup, so I don't want to give you half my shit. So.
All right. Well, thank you, Andrew, for being here.
You're welcome, babe.
I so appreciate you taking the time to bear your wisdom, and yeah, it's very, very sweet. This is unpaid work, but it's technically all our money anyway. So if I were to pay you, it would just circle around in our account. But.
I do this as first off, it's not unpaid; it's paid. I get paid. I get paid in handies afterwards. Everyone, just so you know, they're enthusiastic, and all joking aside, it's the larger vision of what I want our life to be. Mm-hmm. And each one of these things that I do is just one kind of like coin in the well of us fusing together. Mm-hmm. And the closer we're fused together, the harder it is to break that bond. So that's how I view it anyway.
He's got me, guys. He's got me. And I like it. All right. And thank you to the listener for opening yourself up to the concept of money and other taboo, sexy things. Have a sexy and spiritual day. And we'll catch you next week on Talk Tantra to Me.
Bye, everybody.